Mislav weeb confirmed. My brother's a massive weeb. I'm also a poser weeb.
All right, let's start the pod.
Let's start.
Welcome to the Friendlyjordies podcast, or Friendly Jimmy's podcast, if you are an avid listener. Unfortunately, Jordan isn't on the pod tonight because he is
away in an undisclosed location that everyone knows because we've mentioned it, but we won't say it.
Blue Mountains. It's a big place.
Go and find him. He's in the Blue Mountains, learning to be a more efficient contributor, aka how to avoid more tax.
He's attending an online Tony Robbins seminar. Good
on him. I think I did a day of it. It was cool.
We talked about it's a big waste of money, but
no. We didn't come to that conclusion. It was So anyway, he's doing that. So it's Shawarma FM.
It's Shawarma FM.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother.
Today we will be talking about chapters 3 to 4 of the Quran. Did you know the Quran's in chapters?
Versus teats.
Send Bobs and Vagine. Chapter 6.
Actually, I saw a really cool video. We'll start off. Look, we've got some good segments, but we'll start off with this because I think Mislav, you'd appreciate it. And I don't care what you guys think. But I saw this.
Panthera.
I think this YouTuber, his name's, I think, something Segura or Rodriguez, something like that. But anyway, he did a YouTube video on why pork is not eaten by 1/3 of the population.
Yeah.
And so he sort of examined. Do you know the reason?
Yeah, I know why.
Well, first of all, no one knows why.
I know why.
Okay, go on.
The Jews and Muslims don't eat pork because historically pork was the meat spoiled and gave you, it was either like worms or spoilage, killed you and made you sick comparatively to like beef or goat or any. Pork was like if it's not treated, it was a temperamental meat.
So apparently that was a theory that became really prominent in the 1700s, there was a lot of literature written on it. But according to this YouTuber,
no,
and he seems legit. He did a lot of research.
Mr. Beast.
So no,
I got 1,000 porks and put them in this swimming pool.
The theory has been debunked. So the disease, I think it's called the disease that you're talking about was actually prevalent in 1700s, and it often came from animals, domesticated animals, pig, chicken, goat. It could be anything.
Of them, okay.
But what the people, the intellectuals, were trying to do at that point with all this new scientific knowledge, they were trying to still justify religious commandments with their newfound scientific belief. But basically, the disease that they were talking about, there's no evidence to suggest that disease was even prevalent in the Abrahamic times.
So it was an assumption.
It was an assumption, and it was basically because they were facing that issue at that given point. They were like, "Oh, that makes sense."
That's what it was. Yeah.
That's why it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they looked at like the Abrahamic texts and the Muslim texts, and they found out that the best explanation, there's not much explanation there.
Really?
But the best thing that they could come up with was the general belief that pigs were dirtier compared to other animals.
So that actually makes sense, like a cultural reason.
And they talked about like and all the literature that came after that by religious scholars explaining why it's dirty. It's like they'll take examples of like, for example, a pig's digestion process works differently to goats and other things. A pig can eat feces. It rolls in its own feces
Pigs
and mud. They'll eat anything. They'll eat human excrement. But this researcher was saying, pigs can do that, but that's their last resort. They're not inherently dirty. So for one, they roll around in their feces because they don't have sweat glands, so they're covering themselves with moisture. Wow. They'd rather do it with clean mud, but if you only give them feces, they're going to roll around in their feces.
Because they're hyper-intelligent.
Similarly to what they eat, the best theory around this is fuck. This is taking so long.
No.
But the best theory around it is that
it's fine.
in the Middle East was a semi-arid area. And with the population boom around the Abrahamic times, you had a lot of deforestation in the Middle East at the time. The pigs that were over there in those forests, because of deforestation, had to move towards urban centers to find food. And the only way they could survive was eat human scraps, roll around in feces, and that does not look appetizing. And you compared that to southern Europe, southern Rome, where pigs weren't considered to be bad. It's not in a semi-arid area. There was much more vegetation. So pigs weren't competing with humans for their food. So the general notion that people in Rome would have was that, yeah, they're like any other animal.
You're blowing my mind.
And that makes so much sense.
You're blowing my mind.
Well, that all comes from this YouTuber.
No, but it actually, that's fascinating because I almost intrinsically, there was something, I almost feel like part of me almost suspected that it would be something like that because like a socio-cultural interpretation of what they saw, not that it was what they saw was false, but like so much of those things are context and that makes perfect sense because, just to be like, pigs are dirty. It's like, no, let's look at urbanization. Animals adapt to their environment. I mean, these fucked environments like pigeons and rats in urban areas and stuff, they're not like intrinsically fucked animals, but they had to become, that's natural selection and adaptation, right?
Yeah.
So that's really,
and it became
really
more of a hot trigger issue in religion because the Sephardic Jews, like the Muslims, because they lived in that part of the Middle East, had historically felt that the pig was dirty. But Jews from the north that were moving to Palestine in that area had pigs, even though it was technically against their religious commandment, but it wasn't that enforced. And so when they started mixing with these the southern Middle Eastern Jews, there was this thing of like, why are you eating pork?
Yeah.
And so then it became even more entrenched in religion that part of being Jew was not having pork to discourage these newer Jews from moving away from their tradition.
Because so much of religion is the socio-cultural implication. We'll move on, but like that is fascinating. But you know what I automatically think when I think of those things? It's the same thing with India and cows. I just think like some cultural trends, there's good ones and there's bad ones. Like, for instance, a bad one is like, in the West, well, in the world, this idea of lawns in your backyard. I don't know how many trillion metric tons of water is wasted on grass for no purpose. That's a trend, modern trend that is bad, right? Almost anyone with a brain would agree. But whenever I think of like the things like the Middle Eastern Jews don't eat pork, Indians don't eat cows, I just think, thank fuck. Because that's a lot of animals' lives that have been saved.
Yeah.
Imagine if Indians were like, imagine if Indians were like Texans and they loved meat. Global warming would be like 50,000 times more sped up. You know what I mean?
Nature has a way of regulating it, but the reason why Indians wouldn't want to have cows is because, religion comes from your society. So in India, like historic India,
is there a reason for that too?
Not eating cows would be more economically beneficial, because you can use cows for agricultural reasons. But if you're living in Mongolia and you get a cow and someone says that cow is sacred, you can't eat it, there's no justification for you to actually adhere to that because the cow isn't providing you with many benefits. So what I'm saying is nature has its way of controlling these things.
Yeah, but it's cool.
It's cool, yeah.
Because by that, if by that notion, India, when it moves into the first world, they'll all start eating cow. It won't happen.
No, it wouldn't happen.
Because
but they eat meat. They'll
they'll
eat buffaloes instead of cows.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you go to India, you'd go to a lot of places where they would be serving beef, but it's actually not cow. It's buffalo.
I thought you had to be vegetarian as a Hindu.
No, all Hindus are vegetarians.
I did not know that.
There's meat-eating Hindus too.
Bastards! Where are you? I'll find you.
Anyway,
I'm gonna go and find any Indian Hindus and do that thing where someone ducks behind them and I go and push them and I go, whoa, and they fall down.
Where you're gonna shame them for eating cows while you're like, ooh, you know which great Wagyu.
I'm not Indian. I'm just kidding. God bless you all. But that is very intriguing.
Anyways, 15 minutes in.
Yeah.
Let's start with our first segment.
I'm just gonna do. These are just stuck a bit. You continue. I'll be 1 sec. I just need to.
You're gonna ruin the autofocus. But anyways, there's 2 simultaneous strikes happening in New South Wales. The train strike, and more importantly, the teachers strike. Yeah, there was a teachers strike. Close to like 350 schools in New South Wales didn't have any teaching today because the teachers were on strike.
Are you serious? Oh, wages? Was it wages?
It's a bunch of things. That's what we're getting into. One of them is my girlfriend, actually.
Fuck.
Who was, because she's a union member, she was actually on strike and she was at the city.
No way.
Yeah.
So is it... Okay, well, let's get into it because I'm obviously...
And I'll give you some inside scoop of what my girlfriend, because she is a teacher, of what she thinks.
Yeah, no.
So there's essentially 2 demands from the teaching community.
Yeah.
One is that you increase the wages, which is obvious, which we'll get into. And the other one is that you increase the number of teachers because the student to teacher ratio is going insane.
Right.
And also with all these new types of knowledge, like, there's added curriculums of coding and all that stuff. Jesus. And so teachers are finding they're not getting extra hours. So they're basically, what they're demanding is we need more time to prepare for lessons and stuff like that.
Fair, I'm with them.
Which is why they need more wages. Now, I asked my girlfriend, be real, what do you think about this? She said, okay, if you ask me, in terms of my salary, I understand that in the private sector, because of Corona, people have had it tough. And we, even though we're off, we were paid. And so I understand that. And if someone told me that your salary is not going to increase for the next 1 year or 2 years, I would personally be fine with that.
Yeah.
The other aspect of student to teacher ratio, that she's saying is really concerning because the students aren't getting the education that they deserve.
Yeah.
That was her point of view. But the teachers, there's a reason why they're saying that salaries need to be increased. One of the problems that the education sector in New South Wales is facing is that there's actually a lot more demand for teachers than there is supply. So schools are finding it really hard to actually hire teachers. There aren't that many. Particularly, there's a huge dearth of casual teachers. There's just not that many available.
Really?
So what the union is saying, that by increasing our salaries, you're going to incentivize people coming into teaching.
That's a pretty good point.
Pretty reasonable point. And obviously the student to teacher ratio and the hours, that's self-evident. What's one of the things that's also a big problem after speaking to my girlfriend was the entry requirements for teaching is not good enough.
Yeah.
She was saying that you could actually become a teacher without even getting an ATAR.
No.
She was saying she knows teachers that never. So it's for a lot of people in today's world, teaching is a backup job.
That is true.
It didn't work out whatever, and then they'll end up going into teaching.
Yep. I know a lot of them myself.
There's the problem.
Yeah, it's not seen as a good career path as an institution.
It's not seen as a good... So raising the wages for teachers is going to help in that regard.
Good idea, yeah.
And one of the other big problems that we're facing because of this issue is that the quality of education keeps dropping.
Yes, I can attest to that as well.
Which is a massive, massive issue because...
Stupid population.
I keep using my girlfriend as an example, but she teaches at a school that is...
public, yeah?
Public, and also it's basically in a hood. And so she was telling me that a lot of the students in her school are basically illiterate. And she was saying that is in stark contrast to kids in the 60s and 70s, where not saying that every kid ended up going to university. In fact, less people went to university. But when you came out of your schooling program, you were literate.
There was a higher standard in school.
There was a higher standard. In today's Australia, you could finish year 12 and you could still be illiterate.
Dude, it's fucking true.
It's
true even in my time. Even when I was in school, like, you could get by. Look, maybe it's not as bad as it is now, but like, yeah, it wasn't like the high. It was almost like if you didn't actively seek out if you weren't actively involved, maybe that's what it was. But if you weren't actively involved in the curriculum and like engaging with it on a level of like some level of engagement and enthusiasm, then you could finish and with qualifications that you shouldn't have. So it's definitely a problem. And I think it's a broader cultural issue because we don't value it anymore. I blame TikTok and America. Actually,
funny you say that. I was actually reading up on something and I wanted to bring it up in this segment. Do you know, again, people, I'm not, again, it's going to be a China example.
Who cares?
Do you know China is doing these sweeping reforms on what their version of TikTok and social media consumption for children is?
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't.
So what they're doing is, one, that there's a blackout for social media for children under the age of 18, which is really, really good because what they did some research and they found out that even if, let's say you're a kid you're in year 7. Now, your parents...
Let me tell you, you could say not another word, and I would think that that's fucking genius.
Well, and the research backs it up too. What they did was that if, let's say, you're a student in year 7, and your parents are diligent, right? They care about... That's actually one of the biggest critical factors for life chances of a child. Like, aside from actually talking... Parents that talk to their kids more the kids end up having a higher vocabulary, which ends up increasing their life chances, right? So let's say you had diligent parents that were telling you, I know that there's a whole social media world out there, but after 7 p.m., you're not allowed to use social media. What they did research and they found out that just fills you with extreme amount of anxiety. Because you're sitting there not allowed to use social media while all your peers are still on there and they're doing crazy amounts of stuff. Yeah. So what they said was in order to help this, you need to have a blanket blackout for kids. So in China, after I think it's 7 p.m., you're not allowed, no kid is allowed to access social media.
Oh, so I thought you said they can't access it at all till they're 18.
No, they can, but you can't stop them because they learn a lot from it too.
Right.
So after 7 p.m., under 18, you're not allowed to use social media.
Yeah.
Then there's small things like while you're scrolling through, because all these tech companies have sort of designed their mechanisms in a way where they're just trying to grab your attention all the time.
Never leave.
They're competing for your attention. So China's mandated that their version of TikTok, while you're scrolling through your reels, after about watching 2 or 3 videos, it comes with a mandatory 45-second pause, and it says, "Are you sure you want to continue watching videos?" And you have to wait.
It's smart.
Then,
because I would go, no, I don't want to fucking. What am I doing?
Because 45 seconds, you're just trapped there.
And also, so much of it is just time.
It just increases your likelihood of getting off of it.
Yeah.
Some people will still do it, but then it's giving you an added sort of...
Because it is just novelty and dopamine. What you're giving yourself is a drug. It's just a feedback loop of a drug. So if you cut that communication, then you go like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
So it's smart.
Then you've got a gaming blackout for under 18. So
wow,
if you're under the age of 18,
in China,
well, because it's the biggest issue for them.
Yeah.
It's more relevant for them. If you look at the stats of screen times and gaming time,
massive.
The 4 countries that are on top of the list are
Korea,
China, number 1, India number 2, Brazil number 3, and US number 4.
Korea.
It also represents their population size.
Oh, okay.
But basically, it's a big concern for them because it's moving away a lot of people from being productive, a lot of kids from being productive. So they put a blackout on games where you can only access gamings on weekends and public holidays.
It's fucking smart. It's not freedom, but it's good for you.
These, I think, and now you could look at this, and we live in Australia, and you could say, well, this is tyranny. Where's the concept of liberty? Who's the government to tell my kid when they can access social media, when they can't access their social media?
But ultimately, social media, I sound like Jordan here, but social media, ultimately, look, there's positives. It's great for communication. It's great for, if it's used sensibly. It's good. It's great for reaching a bigger audience. For businesses, it's amazing. Great for small businesses. Free advertising, the best ever. I mean, Jordan wouldn't have a career. It helps me hugely, all of us. I'm not shaming, batting it in that regard. But it is a drug that is so easy to fall into becoming an addict without really thinking about it, realizing it, and because it's socially accepted, you just keep using it and using it. And there are serious dangers. And for young people, suicide numbers are skyrocketing, self-conscious and anxiety. It's a smart move.
One more thing.
It's a smart move.
The government in China allocates a budget for TikTok video production where they get TikTok, scientists and other people, all the good content that you would watch on YouTube or something that is...
the non-dopamine stuff.
The non-dopamine stuff. And what they do is they make small videos of it, and they force their tech companies, or they're in the process of doing this, because all of this is easier said than done, where they would plant some of those videos forcefully into algorithms that while you're watching, let's say you're really into, I don't know, watching Bollywood songs or whatever. Let's say that's what...
Oh, you know me too
well. Or K-pop material, right? Like BTS material. What it would do is, while you're scrolling through, after a second video, it would plug in a scientific video within that, so that you get slightly distracted.
It's a tiny thing, but it's smart, because the internet is an amazing tool, but so many people, including myself, use it for crap.
Yeah.
Generally, I use it for a lot of crap. Even if I'm looking at music gear, I'm like, what does this sound like? I'm never going to use it. I'm never going to buy it. I don't need it.
Yeah.
It's useless. So that's smart. It's fucking smart. Because people seem to forget, I know, like you said, there's questions of liberty and freedom and shit, but it's from my experience, human beings are dogs. We just need training. I need a routine. I need someone to tell me what to do, basically, to have consequences to actions and some form of stability and meaning. That's kind of, and also contributing, and you feel good when you actually achieve things that take hard work and dedication and time and delayed gratification. But it doesn't come naturally, and it's hard. And otherwise we'll all just be in bed eating bag after bag of M&Ms.
But Miss, you know what makes it even harder for Gen Z and
because they were born
because they were born in it. So when you're growing up, they did a study on marijuana smoking, and what they've basically figured out was that they can't be completely sure still what negative impacts it has on adults, except that if you have an addictive personality, it can take over you. But you could be a functioning marijuana smoker as an adult with having very little adverse consequences on your life. But what they did cement or figure out was that when you're in your developing years, let's say you're a young teenager, you're 12, 13, when your brain is still developing, if you consume heavy amounts of marijuana, it actually does stunt your growth in your adulthood too.
What do you mean your growth?
Your mental growth.
Really? What age? 12, 13?
Yeah, basically until you're an adult. Your brain has fully developed.
No, I was just running it through my mind. I'm like,
biologically.
I was just on the cusp, so.
But, hey, that's what and I think the same applies for a lot of this technology stuff too. If you're born in it, and if you're consuming it since you look at kids.
100%.
You look at infants today,
I feel
they're constantly in front of the screen, and you ask a parent, and I feel for them. You ask a parent, you're like, why are you letting your kid do this? And they'd be like, you have no fucking clue, dude.
It's so
you
hard.
sit there with our kids, and you think that it's easy. You think we don't know? You think we don't try? this kid would throw fits here where you are going to be looking at us in public and being like, can you control your fucking kid?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you understand all of that, but it still impacts the kids.
Absolutely.
So you have to like sort of forcefully somehow make their screen time, the duration less.
Well, what's your take on it? I think it's fucking smart.
I think it's a good thing too.
Yeah.
And I think that's also part of the reason why like your education standards are dropping. Okay, this is a funny thing, but like again, for my girlfriend,
they are dropping. People think. Can I just say this before you go on? Again, I'm just channeling Jordan here, but they asked a bunch of, it was a tally of American school kids or youth or something about what they want to be when they grow up. The majority of them said famous.
Yeah.
And then they were like, what for? And they're like, I don't care. I don't know. Just famous. And then they asked a bunch of kids in China. And again, I think I can list all the bad things that are bad about China all night. I think everyone knows my perspectives on that. Irrelevant of that. They asked kids in China what they wanted to be, and it was like doctor, lawyer, astronaut. What we saw as prestigious careers, and like
you would find a lot of kids in China that would want to do social media stuff too. Okay. But I suppose,
but the numbers don't lie, But anyway, go on, yeah.
My girlfriend's school. There's this kid who's dating a TikTok star, local TikTok star. I'm not going to reveal the postcode or what area the kid's famous in, but she was saying it's so funny. Because the kid, he's dropping out of school because his girlfriend's somewhat like year 10 or year 11 or something.
Well, that's a lot of dropouts.
And like he's a celebrity in the school for dating this TikToker. And she'd say he walks in, all the kids starts clapping and screaming, and every time he walks in class, he pumps them up.
God. See, this is the thing, right? The kids aren't to blame.
No, the kids aren't to blame.
Any of us at that age would have done the same thing. It's like, I mean, that's exactly what kids are like. They want, your hormones are pumping. You're learning about where you place in terms of society, in terms of your social connections. So those connections are like really important. I mean, they still are for adults, but like hyper important. They're you're like, that is what you care about. By nature, you have to force children and young people to do things that they don't want to do, even just to live. The world is not a fair, fun place a lot of the time, at all, most of the time. So it's like, the kids aren't to blame. I don't blame the kid for going, yeah, I do the same thing. The problem is the institutions and the tech, the companies and all these apps and the culture, because it's like, it's not stopping it.
Yeah.
And like, you can't stop it. So there has to be regulation. If there's no regulation, then like, we're doomed.
You can't leave it on autopilot.
Dude, we're already getting fucked. Like, it's really, and I am too, man. Like, one example, my phone is so fucked now. My phone's just fucked. It's fucked. It's dying. It's on its last legs. So that cross cam's going to be gone soon. It has to be. So many people think I'm using a filter, and I'm like, they think I'm an idiot. I delete. I don't have Facebook on there because I just don't use it on my phone, and I was like, this is stupid. But Instagram I still used. The only reason I do is because of the band thing, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I deleted it, and I couldn't reinstall it because my phone's so fucked. It was like too much disk space. I couldn't install Instagram. So me being forced by a different reason to not be able to access Instagram for the last couple of days at all. It was hard for a day. 3-4 days later, best thing that's ever happened to me. If it's not an option, I realize how much time and energy I waste on it, and then I put that time and energy into other things that are actually beneficial and useful, and ironically make me actually feel better and accomplished, like I'm doing something more meaningful. And
is that really more meaningful than checking out Instagram thoughts all day?
Yes. What?
I beg to differ.
Dude, trust me. Delete it. It's like, it's profound.
Yeah, no.
And that's just a single example.
I don't even use it that much, except to like stalk Instagram thoughts every now and then.
I just use it to, I like it because I can look at bands. It's such an intimate look at bands. It's like, oh, my favorite guitarist uses this pedal and this amp and this guitar. Where, oh, they eat fucking cheeseburgers, But even that is, it's like everything ultimately becomes the new normal. So when I was a kid, I thought like, so embarrassing. I thought Limp Bizkit were like gods, and I thought that if I was like, I live in Australia, they'd be like, where's that? We live in Limp Bizkit world. Like I thought that there was no, they live in. I didn't think that they were like normal people and any artists. And now I obviously don't think that. But the thing is, that has now become the new normal. So the new normal is you know everything about everyone. You understand where they live and who their friends are and where they eat and what the specifics of what they do. You can do that. So now that's just expected of everyone. And now that's kind of just what it is. And it's kind of plain now. It's like I can tell you like, I don't know, what, well, David Bowie's dead, but like, I don't know. Like I can tell you what any artist, modern day artist, a lot more detail about what they enjoy and how they live and what they like. Has that made me more fulfilled and given me more enjoyment from what they do and as them as people? I don't know. I don't really think so. It's novelty. It's not meaningful. It's novelty. What do they eat? That's novelty. Where do they live? That's a novelty. What guitars they use? Oh, that's kind of cool, but essentially it's a novelty too, because when you're given less, the more constrictions you have in you get more creative and your interpretations become cool. So if I don't know what this guitar this guy used, right, I might buy one that I just assume he uses, and then I'll work at it and create my interpretation of how he plays. And then I might meet him and be like, oh no, dude, you were way off. But what you've created by your wrong assumptions is ultimately way cooler than what you would have created if I just gave you the fact sheet of what I do.
Learn something new in the process.
And
found a different way of getting there.
Yeah, you sort of bend, it bends, and then by it bending, your interpretation of something is your interpretation. It becomes more original, and usually it's something new.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I know what you...
Yeah.
And
novelty is overrated. Novelty is
bringing
overrated.
it back to the segment in the first place. Now, this is where the political aspects of it come. So the teachers are on strike. The Liberal government is essentially saying that you don't deserve a pay rise.
Right.
Because...
Can I just ask, is it a state or a federal thing, this?
This is a state thing.
Gotcha, go on.
So you don't deserve a pay rise because if you compare your wages to private sector of similar kind of jobs, you're getting adequate salary, blah, 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 and all that stuff. But on the surface, some economists could actually be, that's like you're interfering with the market. You're just creating inflation. You're overpaying certain people, blah, blah, blah. But this strike could be a blessing in disguise for the government. If you do increase the pay, and sure, the pay for teachers, let's say, might be higher than someone that's doing some private job, but that incentivizes people, smart people, to get into teaching. Yeah. And ever since the Liberals, I sound like Jordan when I say this, but like ever since the Liberals took over, they've been the act of starving these public services actually has horrible knock-on consequences where when you reduce the teaching standards at school, you think it's not that much of an issue, but it has a knock-on effect on universities. Universities in Australia, because of the standard of education, were such a high priority for international kids all over the world that would want to come to Australia because they knew that the quality standard is as high as anywhere else that teaches at any other top university.
Yeah.
And that's diminishing as well.
That'll be jeopardized.
And now they recently did a post-COVID study on, because there's a huge problem where a lot of the students, international students, came from China. And with these geopolitical rebalancing, we're not going to depend more on China. So we're trying to diversify, which basically means India. And they did this extensive research market research into Indians, like whether they be English-speaking Indians or local language-speaking Indians, to see what they think of Australian university education, and the results aren't good.
Really,
the wanting to come to Australia is diminishing.
Wait a sec, but isn't that? But why? Because what are you saying that teachers, the quality's dropping, so university lecturers are quality's dropping?
Yeah, and which means that
Right.
international students
So it's a
are looking
knock-on
to go
effect. It's a
elsewhere.
knock-on effect.
There's a knock-on effect.
I wouldn't have thought that. It's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that university lecturer qualities would drop, but they are.
But, well, you could argue that, and the clear evidence is that internationally, students find Australia a less attractive destination for higher education than what they did 5-6 years ago. Now, part of it has to do with COVID as well, because with this massive stop, people are reconfiguring what they think about this stuff and how they want to go approach higher education. But that's not a good sign.
No.
Because Australia was considered a benchmark for education, whether it be high school education or tertiary education.
So you're saying that kids are graduating high school dumb and then they're becoming dumb uni lecturers, to simplify it.
Yeah. Even though uni lecturers are much more educated than your much more educated than your standard teachers.
Right.
But there's still some sort of, because the other thing is, I think there's also a structural issue over here, that it's not just that the teachers are bad, the university lecturers are bad, but the university curriculum isn't good enough.
Yeah.
It's not well adapted to today's world. So you would need a lot more engagement with real life. What they've figured out is, or what they're sort of advocating nowadays is, education should be a mesh of actual practical training as well as your normal bookish stuff. And Australian universities haven't been able to sort of combine those two as effectively as a lot of Scandinavian and Germany is one example where they're doing it really well. The only disadvantage that they have is that their teaching isn't in English.
Yes.
If Scandinavian teaching was primarily in English, you would see a lot more international kids and these rich people who would send their kids to their schooling as well.
Right.
Because they're clearly they're setting the benchmark really high.
But the uni issue isn't. So the uni issue isn't separate from the high teacher.
I think it's just a general education thing. You
know what it is? I think that we're trying to maybe I don't know. I might be wrong here, but I feel like we're sort of trying to emulate America, and America's education system is fucked.
That's the other actual. Okay, so they recently, I was reading this report on higher education in Australia, where it's a yearly report which evaluates what the higher education program is like, how it can be made better, and I think the problem lies there. They evaluated 4 aspects of higher education, which included practical skills, curriculum, teaching, and one of the biggest components was identity and values.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. It's the culture.
It's the identity and values is cool for a certain section of people, but to emphasize it, and all the panelists that were talking about this report that I saw on a video as well, kept emphasizing on how important identity and values and diversity is. I'm not saying that that's not important. I'm saying that you should focus on other things as well. It's not, because what you're basically training your kids to, today's kid living, let's say it's called I think someone described it as the Hikatashu syndrome, where Hikatashu is a make-believe child that lives in Japan, in a rural Japan, and who belongs to a lower middle class. The worldview that kid has is, if I go to the city and get a university education and also become and also learn English, I become a global citizen, which increases my life chances, where I would probably earn more, blah, blah, blah. All of this is predicated on the American hegemonic concept of what education needs to be. In a rebalancing geopolitical world where China becomes the supreme power, a lot of that sort of worldview of what it means to be educated also loses relevance.
But surely the Chinese model is not that different. Just replace English with Chinese or some shit.
Replace English with Chinese, but also I think that they've got a more emphasis on STEM science, technology, engineering, mathematics than Australia has.
Oh, dude, our fucking maths, science is less, but our maths is like a joke, dude. Like, well, look, maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know. Maybe it's not that bad. When I was in high school, like, it wasn't great. But for instance, you can drop it for the HSC, which I did.
Yeah.
So I dropped it. I was doing it, and I was so bad at it that I dropped it. Whereas, should you be allowed to drop maths? I don't know. A
lot of people would say you shouldn't be, particularly at high school level. Like, for example, I wasn't. Yeah, I couldn't.
You couldn't.
I couldn't.
See, this is the thing. In Australia, right, if I wanted to, this is fucking over 10 years ago. So, like, maybe, I don't know, it's probably even more lax now. But when I was in school, you could drop fucking everything. You could drop maths, drop science, don't have to do history. You could, I think English was mandatory, but it was like fucking basic English. So it was kind of like, analyze Little Red Riding Hood, You could finish with an HSC, a high UAI, whatever the fuck they call it now, with doing like business studies, sport, PE, like physical education, textiles, and like cooking.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's like, at what point should the government or whoever come in and say, this isn't enough to qualify? There has to be standards in an education system. Otherwise, anyone can do it and anyone can finish. It's pointless. It has no value. It's supposed to be hard. And that would fuck me because I wasn't, like, I was good at music and English and I did geography and I did biology and ancient history, but like I wasn't good at those either. I was bad at maths. I was good at a few elements, but that doesn't mean that I should be exonerated from those difficult subjects because life's fucking difficult. And if the standard keeps dropping, there will be implications in terms of the workforce and society and culture ultimately.
And for that, you also you can't have only one option. That you need to have non-universities pathways to a decent living.
TAFE is sick.
Which means
and they've cut that too. They've cut that too.
Again, that's you're starving all of this stuff and you think you're making good economical decisions to balance the budget.
Know they're not.
But you're creating issues for the next 20, 30 years.
Yes.
I'll give you another example of why extra resources are really important in this sort of situation. So one of the other researches that they've done on education is that they've come to this conclusion that, let's say you're a bilingual kid, right? You grew up
like me,
like you. Okay, you. Now imagine when you came to, let's say you weren't born here, you came to Australia, right? You're a young kid that lives in an immigrant household where your parents exclusively speak in a foreign language. In this case, it's Croatian, right? You speak Croatian at home.
Which I did, yeah.
You go to school and you're taught in English. Now, you're going to be able to learn spoken English really well because you're immersed with your peers. But what they figured out was that in order for you to actually develop your faculties and to understand what you're studying really well is by cementing the initial ideas like numeracy and basic language skills in the language that you are most comfortable speaking in. If you skip that zone, let's say when you're a child and you only, this issue is very prevalent with Arabic speakers in Australia. So you would come to the school, you would learn in English, you speak Arabic at home. At this point, you live in Australia, your Arabic isn't even perfect, and your English isn't even perfect. So that's actually what makes you a little illiterate by the time you reach year 12 because you don't know either of those languages really well. The only way you can learn English is by learning Arabic first. So when your initial primary education is to be taught in an ideal world, it needs to be taught in Arabic. And then after...
Wait a second, it worked for me.
Look, your circumstances might have been different.
Right,
First of all, I don't know what you could have achieved if you had. I don't know.
I did fine in school, you fuck.
Well, yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, like, it would be ideal for you to learn English.
That's
in Arabic initially.
really?
And look, once you
that's kind of surprising, but it's interesting. Hey, if the
once
science speaks for itself.
once you reach year 4 and 5, at that point, once you've cemented your foundations, then you can go on and learn as many languages as you want.
You really
once
think
you've
they
got
would
your
excel?
base strong,
Yeah.
it's like having the tools first. If you don't know your own language that well, it is impossible for you to master other languages. But if you know your own language really well, you can pick up
Right.
many languages and understand them really well. Which is why
Yeah.
you go to Scandinavia and people speak perfect English.
Yeah, that's true.
They know English better than most English speakers.
Yeah, I don't know how that is.
They studied English, but their basics were in their local languages. And so it was easier for them to understand. But what
So
that
you're
means
saying
is,
if I did that, I'd be an astronaut right now.
I don't know, who knows.
My
but what I'm
Croatian
saying,
was pretty high, like good, high standard.
yeah, but can you read Croatian?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, what I'm saying is, in order to address these kinds of issues, you need proper, dedicated Arabic teachers in all schools that have a big representation of Arabic student kids. That requires additional resources. And you're starving.
That's never going to happen.
You're
anyway.
starving these.
Because like of the cultural implications. Everyone's like, what the fuck, you know? But if the science, if the research is strong on that, and you know, like, if it's fucking true, then hey, maybe it's the right thing to do.
You know,
if it really does. Because, you know, some might say, well, they're not ever going to learn English. That why would they, right? They won't. There's not going to. Because I would assume that if you learn one language up to year 5, you're not going to have a particular urge to jump over to a next language just at the peak of your education in one language. Maybe I'm wrong. It just seems like,
well, apparently you can.
Really?
And you do it much better. Like,
well, if the Scandinavian,
you know,
the Scandinavian
Chomsky
model, if that's what they do in Scandinavia, then there's obviously some truth to that, because you know, like you said, Scandinavians speak English better than
often you get primary education in English in Scandinavia,
right,
at university level.
Where
in Scandinavia, so you would get
in school
English, in school,
Yeah.
you would have English as like a minor subject, the same way you would have Italian, at school, and then at university, your entire medium of education is in English. But somehow they are able to adapt really well.
It's pretty amazing.
Imagine if I told you that you do Italian in high school.
I did French in high school.
If you did French in high school, now imagine once you enter university, all your education is going to be in French.
You'd know it. You'd be good. You'd learn.
But like by that point, you would find it really difficult to succeed at university unless your foundations in French aren't that strong. Which, I'm gonna be honest, I've met a lot of Australians that say, "Yo, I studied French at high school," and you're like, "Do you know where it's like oui?"
Yeah, it's like I know how to say a few things.
So you don't know really anything. So you haven't.
Yeah.
Either way, Chomsky, Chomsky's like famous for being a political theorist and stuff, but he's primarily a linguist.
Linguistics, yeah.
And it's actually his theory.
Oh, really?
His theory is that language or communication between two people, what we're doing right now, isn't the purpose of language. It seems to be a byproduct of language. The purpose of language is to create an analytical framework in your mind that helps you organize thoughts, which is why whenever you think in a language. There's no other way to think.
It's funny you say that, because I think in Croatian sometimes.
Well, which is also a language.
Yeah.
Right? And that means that actually Croatian has a big impact on you, which means that you're not actually as native of an English speaker as you might think.
Probably, yeah.
Because your initial foundation was actually set in Croatian.
Sure,
so Chomsky says that once you've understood you've understood your language, you've created an analytical framework into how to organize your thoughts, it's actually much easier for you to understand other things too.
Wow, cool.
Which is why bilingual people, they say, are smarter. Because it's not that they're smarter just because they can communicate with more people. It's because they have multiple analytical tools. Wow. So they can think of the same problem in two ways, as opposed to someone that was more...
I think you're right, because that's a really cool point, because I feel like different languages... again, Croatian's the only thing I really have to relate to. But it's almost like the style. No two languages say the same thing the same way. There's always you can say, oh, this is what they're saying.
Actually, according to Chomsky, no two people say the same thing in the same way.
Oh, wow.
Well, he says that the difference between when you say that you speak a common language, your language is similar enough that you're able to decode the other person really well.
Yeah.
But everyone has their own individual language.
I think that's true too.
Which is why, like, because languages change so quickly. We always compare to countries like Australia and the US, which are basically formed based on sort of diminishing the older societies and creating this artificial homogenous language. But usually within a few Ks, your language changes. So
that's true.
Yeah, when you go from when you're in Europe, you go from let's say Italy to France. At some point, you'll start off as Italian, and then when closer to French border, it becomes closer to French, and at some point, it just becomes French.
Yes.
And so, all languages, everyone has a different language. It's just that it's similar enough that we can decode each other.
It's fascinating.
Anyways, there's a whole lot of literature on how important language is.
That to me is fascinating. I don't know why, but it is. There's always been a part of me that's, like I was saying with the Croatian thing. It's like I can give you a sentence in English and a sentence in Croatian that when they translate mean the same thing. But even the way that the Croatian sentence is phonetically, what it evokes when it's said, it's a completely different thing.
They're saying that the audio keeps growing up.
No, it sounds fine to me.
They're saying you guys become robots every now and then.
I've been listening the whole time. Well, look, I have been listening the whole time, and I've heard... Mislav is trilingual. He knows Bogan as well. Too right, yeah, dirty maths. But yeah, two sentences saying the same thing. They feel and evoke completely different emotions and different styles. You know what's interesting too? Probably because my dad obviously learned English later in life. Maybe it's because it's his native language, Croatian. Or maybe it's because of what I was talking about, the inherent differences in language and how you communicate, and that they're different. You don't say the same things. They're completely different. There's inflections. There's completely unrelated. There's no relationship with Croatian and English. None, really. And maybe it's just because maybe it's because the English language is just so so fragmented, and also and you know how the English language is kind of everything is simplified. There's no nuance. There's no genders. In Croatian, everything is a gender. That's female. That's male. That's female. English is rudimentary. I am going to the car. It's just that's the nature of it. Whenever I speak to my dad in English, so it could be any of those reasons. I'm just giving you, I don't know why, but it's fragmented. It doesn't flow as much. It takes a lot more physical energy to speak. It's more tiring for both of us. But then when we speak Croatian, it's so fluid that it's almost, things can be said quicker, easier. It's easier to communicate and to be more expressive. I just find that so interesting.
So
it could be any of those reasons.
Chomsky would actually disagree with you.
Oh, why? Because
what Chomsky says is that he gave one of his interviews, which I check out. I think it was a University of Washington interview that he did. Go on YouTube, on linguistics. It's a highly recommended one. But so just at that point, he gives an example of an old French bishop who made a prediction in, I think, 17 or 1600s, who said that I'll make a prediction. French will be the language of science, and English and Italian would be the language of romance and literature. Because he says that in French, the concept follows immediately after the words that you use it. Whereas in English, you have the flow of language is such that it takes much longer to express a thought.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now, basically what he is also trying to say is that I know French better. So for him, the flow is easier in French because he speaks French primarily. That's the language he is most comfortable in. It's not that English is inherently different. All languages are essentially the same. Right. It's whatever language that you have the best command over that you would feel is easier to communicate in. So for your dad, Croatian would be easier to communicate because he just knows Croatian better than English.
Okay, that's probably
He
that's
thinks
probably
in
true.
Croatian, so expressing your ideas in Croatian is way easier for him to do so.
Yeah.
But if he was primarily an English speaker that had never ever studied Croatian, he grew up in Surrey and had always spoken French, including his family, I think he would find it much more difficult to express his ideas in Croatian.
That's probably all it is. I'm probably just looking at it from a typical like creative point of view where I'm like, it's the juju, baby. It's like, no, it's probably just that he's more. But I swear to God, I still do think that Croatian or Italian, French, not Germanic languages, have this lyricism and flow where communication is, because of the nature of that lyricism, it's easier to communicate. It flows. It physically.
I think it's just because it's easier for you to communicate in it.
No, but it's
not that the language inherently is better for communication.
But this is the thing.
All languages are equally good at communication.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's not, but my Croatian isn't amazing, so it's not the case. That's not
Yeah,
true.
but you just said that you sometimes think in Croatian.
I do, yeah, sometimes.
Which means that there's part of your mind that is coded to think of stuff in Croatian.
Yeah.
So it's easier for you to express because there's no translation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, because I speak English and I've been speaking it for so long, I do it instinctively without realizing. But every person that has learned a language and is communicating in a different language that they've learned over the years is almost translating every word that they're speaking.
Yeah.
Which makes it more difficult.
Way more difficult.
In Croatian, you don't have to do that. So it's a more direct process.
Yeah.
The language you're thinking in, so you're saying exactly what you're thinking as opposed to recoding it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Basically, if you're speaking in English, you are converting an MKV file into MP4 first and then putting it out there.
Yeah.
Which makes the process longer. It's a minute second because your brain is a computer and can do it really quickly, but it's still going through that process. When you skip that process, you feel better because you don't have to do that extra work. Anyways, that's that.
Look, it's fascinating stuff. Maybe there's still time for me to rent a small apartment in downtown Boston and just sit behind a whole bunch of books and just be like, French is cool.
French is cool. First of all, it's sexier.
Romanian is also cool. There's still time for me. Linguistics amazing.
What about Indian? Not cool.
Indian is, I wouldn't call it a cool language, but it's fascinating.
Hey,
it's still fascinating.
Well,
I think all languages, exactly.
Yeah.
I think they're all fascinating. I mean, I think Chinese is a pretty ugly language, but it's still fascinating. And that's just my interpretation. Maybe it's not. Maybe
all right, that was a long segment, but let's move on. We talked about this last segment.
Yeah.
Sorry, last pod, which never aired, so we're going to do it again. The Solomon Islands. Do you remember that?
What the hell is this? Is this still weird sounds? I swear. Just tell us. Okay.
Look, not everyone's saying it, so I'm just kidding you.
But see, I'm listening, and it sounds absolutely fine. So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Anyways, look.
Yeah,
whatever.
Look. It's okay now, they said. I don't know. It's been fine for a while. Whatever. Okay,
So,
cheers. So Solomon Islands.
Yeah,
yes.
have you guys been following the news on Solomon Island? I am speaking to this camera as if it can talk back.
Hey. That's the audience right there.
But basically, to give you a little brief of what happened in Solomon Islands is that there was recently a spat of protests directed against the government as well as China. Because there's a lot of Chinese investment in Solomon Islands.
I know
and
about
so
this.
they burnt the Chinatown and they actually burnt the Parliament building, and there was a vote of no confidence in Parliament. They wanted to overthrow the government. And Australia has sent, I don't know, close to 1,000, I can't remember the exact number. It might be close to 500 or something like that, military and police personnel to protect the state from basically collapsing. The interesting thing about this is that the United States and India are putting pressure on Australia to stop doing that.
Yeah.
because they would rather that the government collapses in Solomon Island and the new government would be more US friendly.
Yeah.
And Australia is not doing that, even though it's part of the grand coalition against China.
I'm surprised.
So there's these little nuances, but this is basically the story. So Solomon Islands, there's about 8 or 9 provinces. One of the provinces is backed, allegedly, because I think I have to say that, by the US government. In 2017 or 2018, the Solomon Islands president basically recognized China and severed, is that how you pronounce it? Severed.
Yeah.
Severed ties
you said it right. Yeah.
with Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
And which actually put Solomon Islands in this like Pacific Cold War issue where the US did not like the new government anymore. So they were backing a province that had their own internal rifts going on to overthrow the government, and the new government would be less China friendly and more US friendly. Mm. China was giving a fair amount of money to the Solomon Islands through incentives of trade to basically convince them to side with China and neutralize that area and not let it be an American base for a potential conflict. Yep. And the US just was not offering that same kind of money to Solomon Islands, so it was natural that they shifted. Now, Australia, the question is, why would Australia send military and police personnel to support a Chinese-backed state against the US? And that's the interesting question. The reason is because Australia is pragmatic and not a moron.
I can't believe it.
If Solomon Islands, the regime in Solomon Island collapses, what comes is a vacuum. And when that vacuum comes, there's going to be a political struggle to find out who gets to take over the country. So you're talking about violence and some kind of a war right at Australia's doorstep. The immediate concern for Australia in that situation would be it would become a hotbed for piracy, because that's how you fund war.
Just heaps of...
If you live in an island in the Solomon.
Just heaps of dodgeball DVDs.
Yes, heaps of dodgeball, which directly affects us because our trade goes through there to Japan, East Asia, and the rest of the world. So a huge piracy presence in Solomon Islands is going to be catastrophic for Australian economic interests. Then, on top of that, with war comes refugees. You know how far Solomon Islands is from Australia?
I'm going to say 100 kilometers. No, way more than that.
More than that, but I don't know the exact. But it's very close.
Yeah, it's close.
It's basically considered, along with Papua New Guinea, as a buffer state of Australia. So
I thought it was East Solomon Islands.
It's north.
Oh fuck! I'm thinking of Samoa.
North. Yeah, you're thinking.
I'm thinking
all
Samoa.
of it is in north because east to us is nothing. It's just the ocean, and then if you go slightly down, it's New Zealand.
What are you talking about? You got east. You got New Caledonia, Samoa, Fiji, the Australasian Islands. There's heaps east.
Okay, look at this. This is a map. Solomon Islands.
Oh, okay, yes.
So that's Australia.
It's northeast.
Yeah, northeast, but it's not east.
I thought it was East Samoa and shit. I thought it was.
Yeah. It's northeast, but
oh fuck yeah. So
either way,
it's
here.
in the arse end of Papua New Guinea.
So if you look at the map, these are Australia's buffer states. Because anyone that's coming to attack Australia would have to come through here, unless it was New Zealand, which we don't perceive as a threat. But anyways, the more immediate concern
keyword there is perceived.
All our traffic, our international trade, goes through that area.
Shit.
So if there's piracy over there, we are screwed. And not to mention that if the state collapses, then the refugees are coming our way as well. So it would be in Australia's interest.
I'm surprised
to keep the state intact.
Are you not surprised that ScoMo did that? I would have thought he'd be like, send the nuclear subs against them. And
as soon as he would have thought of that, some bureaucrat that understands what they're saying, you can't. Really? These are the consequences.
Right. Even in the Liberal Party.
Because Australia learned its lesson during the Howard years, where there was political instability in the Solomon Islands, and we didn't actually go and support them, and that created a lot of problems. So this time when it turned around, Australia actually signed a defense pact with Solomon Islands in 2017 to protect them against this exact scenario. So there's a legal rationale for it as well. But
that's good news, really, that they're doing that.
Well, it's good news, but bad news is the Cold War is at our doorstep. This is step one. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the problem with the world wars. This Cold War is going to affect us. U.S. will have no issues.
It's exactly
None
what
of their trade goes through here.
Exactly
They're going to fuck off, even if they lose Solomon Islands. And we're the one who has to live in this area and deal with the consequences. So it's not good that our backyard is basically a Cold War hotbed.
Shit. That Croatian house is looking a lot toastier right now.
Which is why I always say that Australia's foreign policy should not be to side with the US or China, but to evaluate what our self-interest is.
I mean, I'm coming around, dude. I'm coming around. I'm serious. I'm coming around because that is pretty fucking terrifying, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's a bummer, to say the least. I don't know. That's fucking crazy. It's also, I'm very embarrassed that I haven't kept an eye on that. I'm so detached from the current affairs. It's embarrassing. I need to. I think it's because it's depressing, but I need to like make more of an effort to actually keep abreast of these issues because it's serious shit. And like,
I mean, look, let's just say it couldn't get any closer.
Yeah.
There's nothing after Solomon Islands. Then it comes mainland Australia. There's no one else protecting us in between that.
Fuck.
So if Solomon Island collapses, we are in a lot of trouble.
Shit.
And then you've got Fiji and Papua New Guinea. Actually, and again, this is Papua New Guinea and Fiji are both supporting Australia and sending their own personnel too because they have similar interests. Which means our foreign policy should be regional. It should take into account what our region needs with players like Fiji, Papua New Guinea, New Zealand.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones that will suffer.
Yeah.
So we need to have a collective move with our neighbors. And if that also means that at some point we have to tell US we can't support you in this, and it also means we tell China we can't support you in this, this, and this.
Yeah.
That's the only way forward. Otherwise, we're screwed.
You heard it here first. I mean, I'm not gonna. It sounds logical to me. It's just fucking brutal that it's human nature that I think that the world will. It's just the same old fucking story.
It's the same old, but it's closer to us now. It was a lot easier when the war was in either Europe or the Middle East or even Vietnam. But when the war comes to Solomon Islands, Fiji, and Darwin,
it's just like World War II all over again.
Yeah, that's not comforting because now we're not in our safe zone anymore.
Do you think? God. Do you think Labor would have better foreign policy?
100%. They have a much better foreign policy. Right now, I feel bad for Penny Wong. Penny Wong is battling it out
in the Senate
with big policy heavyweights right now, because she's advocating again for an independent view. Basically, she's saying that we shouldn't draw the line where like if China invades Taiwan, it's a given that Australia would get into the war. She's saying that we could. Or we couldn't. Yeah. We need to keep that option open.
Like that's a radical fucking question.
Yeah. And I applaud her for actually saying it because usually when it came to Labour Party, the only people that were voicing this stuff were, used bullets like your Paul Keatings and your Bob Carrs and your Kevin Rudds. And
there he is.
Even though the serving Labour Party parliamentarians might have the same exact view as Bob Carr, they were petrified to even say it because they would think that's political suicide. And it would be. But
it has to be said.
But it has to be said when it comes to big things like, and Labour Party, it's not that Labour Party is, again, the Sky News tries to paint it as the coalition which stands with US because we all love Ford, and Labour stands with China because they like tyranny. And it's not, Labour isn't siding with China. They're just saying we need to assess every situation based on our own national interests.
Yeah, and that's not.
And also not using World War III as an election campaign, which the Liberal Party is doing. Because you look at Scott Morrison, he is, again, a lot is like how mischievous he is. On one hand, he exploits the anti-China sentiment in the Australian public so well by like saying, we're going to give it to China, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But when it comes to actually doing something in the Solomon Islands, he does what the establishment dictates, which is keep the state intact, which he's right for, but there's a huge gap in what he says and what he does.
Fucking ScoMo, fucking Scotty from marketing, right?
Labor just has it consistent. This is what we say. This is what we do.
Yeah, I think. Do you think Albo can get in for the next one? I think he can.
The fact that Jordan said that Jordan was
he said he will.
No, Jordan told me that he thinks that Alba wouldn't get in.
He fucking flips. He flips.
And that is good news because I can tell you, every time Jordan says something will happen, the opposite happens.
Really?
In every instance.
What?
Yeah.
Like, for example?
Last election, he said Labor was going to win. Trump v. Hillary. Hillary was going to win.
I didn't say that.
Trump v. Biden. He said Trump was going to win.
Yeah, he loses every time.
If Jordan is saying one thing, the opposite's going to happen. And I'm very happy. The day Jordan comes in and he says, boys, I think we've got this one. I think Albo's coming in.
You're like, no.
Yeah, we're losing.
Fuck. Dude, how funny is it us saying that like in ostensibly his office, being like, what an idiot.
He'd agree with me. He knows this isn't a secret.
I mean, look, I feel like I thought Trump might have got in the second time, but my record's sort of 50-50. And I think Albo will win, if that means anything. Actually, it's a definition of meaningless.
I think Albo might win. And I can almost tell when I walk into any Coles and I look at the selection of newspapers, the Murdoch press, and other press for that matter, lost elections when Bill Shorten was coming in. All you could see was just negative coverage. The last Sydney Morning Herald headline that I read was, Labor promises to address climate change and reduce power bills.
That's huge.
That's
huge.
Means that at least if the press isn't for Labor, they're at least neutral in this instance, which is a huge help.
I'm hoping. The main reason now is the China thing, because it's like, you know, conservatives tend to like war historically.
I think Murdoch has also realized that, you know how liberals, they stay in power for ages, but then there's always that one election where it seems like things are going to turn over. It usually also entails the opposition going up to the Murdoch media and all the oligarchs and just basically saying, we'll do exactly what the Liberal Party does, but we'll just do it in a slightly better way. God. And usually at that point, like, okay, we'll give you one chance. And then 3 years in, Labor, and then again, it comes back to the Liberals.
Why? It's crazy. I mean,
they're more, I don't know, the business lobby likes them more. But we'll see. I hope that Labor wins, because I genuinely think that if the coalition stays in power, Australia is going to keep sliding down the ladder, whether it be education, foreign policy.
Fuck.
It would be really useful for Labor to come into power.
Yeah, I'll take one for the team and not vote for the parking meter party.
By the way, did you vote for the local elections?
I did. I did it online.
Me too. What did you say?
Did you do I vote?
I vote. I'm gonna be away from my electorate.
Well, actually, who did you vote?
Liberals. No, I didn't.
Labour.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? So for mine, it was like really vague. That it was like independent. It was like 7 independents and then 2 None. And I Googled the names and it didn't tell me what fucking parties they were.
It didn't say Labour in brackets or something?
No. I swear to God, dude, it didn't.
So would you do? You just took a gamble?
Nah, I knew one of the independents. I knew him. This guy, Steve, so I voted independent.
and he's part of the Shooters and Fishers
I
party.
have no idea what party he's a part of. I might have voted Nationals.
Come on.
It's for the council.
No, but still, you can't be part of Friendlyjordies and vote Nationals.
I hope I didn't. In fact, I'm going to Google it right now. Oh, no, I forgot his name. How am I going to find? I'll find out for the next pod, but it was pissing me off that I couldn't find the Labour and Libs. So, like, I knew this guy, right? I knew who he was.
Mm.
Like, he seems like he's a nice guy. He always came in. He seemed to me like he wouldn't be a Nationals guy.
Yeah, this is who you voted for. Just look at this headline.
Allegedly took several
National Senator Sam McMahon allegedly took several swings at a party director at Canberra pub. That's who you voted for.
I didn't. I'll try to find his name.
Where this woman was beating a man at a pub.
Hold on a second.
And she won.
I mean, you're not helping me not want to vote for her with headlines like that. That's awesome.
Sky News reported that McMahon allegedly attempted to punch Hawks, taking 3 or 4 swings at him at a Canberra pub on Thursday evening, attended by Nationals MPs and staffer.
Okay, how can I find?
And this is what the Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce did to address the situation. Hug it out and let's get over with this.
Fuck me. I really hope I don't. Hold on. Oh, here we go. This is his name. I think this is him. Stephen Ring. Without a councillors. Okay, I think this is him. I can tell you. Hold on. How can I find what he's... Can you Google him? Google him.
Well, you give me...
That's it. His name's Steve Ring. That's who I voted for. Tell me what party he is. Please don't say Nationals.
Well, Lithgow?
Yeah. Lithgow Council. I'm still in Lithgow.
Oh, okay. What was his name? Steve?
Ring.
Maybe then Labour wasn't even...
I don't think Labour
RING?
Yeah. Lithgow, a councillor. I don't know. It didn't say Liberal. Fuck. It didn't say Liberal. Oh, my fucking headphones just stopped. It didn't say Liberal or Labor, but let's find this out now. This will be exciting. He's the only one I know.
I think he might just be an independent.
Yeah. I think he is. He is an independent. So my vote, I essentially threw my vote away, I think.
Well, look, I don't think Labour was going to win Lithgow anyways.
Never. I don't think it'll happen.
I can't find any details.
He's an independent.
I don't think he's winning.
He's not going to win.
He's a no one.
Basically, I threw my vote away. It was like, but there was no Liberal. I swear to God, it didn't even say the things. It said there was like 7 independents and 2 unmarked. And even when I Googled the names, nothing. And I was like, what the fuck? So I just looked at his name. I'm like, I know that guy. He always supported our business. He's a really nice guy. He'd always come in. So I was like, I'm going to vote for him.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
But
I'm still registered.
That's the end of the show.
Okay, well, on the dog question.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Before we go, because Jordan will have my hide. You freaked me out with this Solomon Islands shit, dude. You freaked the shit out of me. That's where you say something assuring.
Nah.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Next time, vote Labour.
If I can find...
That would help.
Dude, it was the council and I couldn't find the Labour fucking dude. Anyway, okay, so Jordan wants to know, he wants to make a dog sanctuary.
Dude, people are saying you voted One Nation.
No, I didn't. It wasn't One Nation. He was an independent. I'm telling you it was an independent, 100%.
Nuts, love.
What's that mean? By the way, it wasn't our leads that were cutting out. Someone said it's bandwidth. Because I can hear the leads. They're fine.
Oh, we couldn't do much about
Doesn't
that.
matter.
This is the best internet we can get.
Yeah. So listen, Jordan and you too, Ali, wants to make a dog sanctuary. Is there any NGOs or groups that could help us do that? And do you have any suggestions about it? Because he just wants to know. He's like, I've been calling about people about it all day. He wants to make a giant dog sanctuary that's like, that we all sort of like fundraise for, and all the strays that are on death row, and all the dogs that are like going to be killed can live in this giant thing, and it's going to be this sort of like, good initiative.
What
That's
about
the plan.
the best sanctuary of all, dog heaven,
Jesus Christ.
where they can gallop and eat as much as they want and cannot gain weight?
Oh, fuck. I'm just going to ignore that statement. And anyone. Let's both look at the things. Isn't that how you get wolves? Call it Papa Paradise. I like that. Hey, it was all independent, so I voted for the members that did not want anything. It was independent. Guide dogs? Guide dogs? No, not guide dogs. What the fuck are you talking about? Give us some suggestions or Jordan will beat me. He does things to me.
Mislow's crying for help.
Grub dogs? Reach out to Steve-O. Come on, give me something. Do you have any ideas, Ali?
Yeah.
What?
Get a property somewhere far from Sydney.
Yeah.
Hire a bunch of team that give them money.
That's the plan.
And get them to like neuter all the animals and be like Tiger King except Dog King.
That's the plan, and it'll be like we can get like Pet Barn involved or like Future Super maybe. We can get fundraising for it, and then we can raise the money where all these dogs will just like live freely, and it'll be a tourist attraction.
So it would literally be a farm where your dogs would go.
Yeah. Yes.
So parents don't have to lie to their kids anymore.
Exactly. But are they just still talking about the council thing? Greyhounds as pets. Oh, gaps. Gaps. Can you write that down? Greyhounds as pets. Can you write it down? I'll forget.
What?
Gaps.
Oh, that's a company?
Yeah. Can you just Google it and then you can send it to me? Gaps. Greyhounds as pets. I have a contact. Ban Mole. Yeah. Send the contact. Tell Jordan to talk to Isaac Butterfield. Why doesn't Jordan go into politics? Because he said poop too many times. This sounds like a bad...
Greyhounds as pets. Yeah. Adopt a greyhound today.
Perfect. Breed dingoes. Yeah, message me. Buy an island and call it Papa Land. Could be easy to back them up. Exactly. There was a... Like Miss... hey... Like listen. Like Miss Love, where I lived, there was no major party running. They were all independent. It was just independence. So I didn't vote any of those fucking parties. Isaac Butterfield might get behind it. They're saying the dog thing. That could be cool. Puppy. What the fuck's the puppy pit? What are you on about? Greyhounds. Greyhounds are amazing pets. That is a useless statement. Very fair statement. You're not really helping me here. Look, I don't know if there's going to be... I'm sort of calling up people now, calling up different institutions now to find who could get behind it, but it's just a case of finding...
Try Nicole Flint. I think she'd want to do it. I think she'd be very supportive.
Papua New Guinea. Oh, my dog. I don't want names... Oh, here we go. I'll take this. This is a good one. Pound Paws, Pet Adoption Service Sydney, Cat and Dogs Homes, Animal Shelter. Thank you, Marilini. That's really good. We got a whole bunch from Marilini. Carlton Close, whatever that is. Miss, you should.
You're doing admin work now. We're still rolling.
I know. But this is what he wanted.
Message Miss Love on Instagram.
No, mine's deleted. I guess I can just log in. Yeah, message me on Instagram and I'll just find a way to get in. If you have the contacts, that would be great. Look, I'm sure that we've already got some. That's good. That's probably enough. I mean, it's just, Jordan, I think Jordan's MO now is just asking you guys on Twitch how to do his job. Do you reckon? These guys like, what do you guys think? Should I get a black sweater or brown? No, hold on, Ali. I want to hear the end of this. A lot of people are saying both.
I got a red one. Anyways, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for the intro.
Jordan's going to be here next week.
Oh, my God. She sent a million.
Hopefully.
Marilyn sent
and we'll miss you guys and we'll see you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We love your work. Thanks so much for supporting us. Sorry about last week. We trying our best here.
Yeah.
But
sorry for
the fuck up. But like Jordan will be here next week. Hopefully. Now what you need to do is join up with our special chats with just our best friends. Oh, you're our best friends on that chat because you're our best buddies because you give us money on Patreon. So join on Patreon. You can be our best bud and you get our personal thumbs up, which we will be doing after this. Come behind the paywall.
See you guys.